Most people think ADHD is just a dopamine problem. They hear about neurotransmitters, genetics, or stimulant medications, and while those are all real parts of the picture, they're not the whole story. In my clinical experience, one of the most overlooked drivers of ADHD symptoms is chronic stress and nervous system dysregulation. And this is where adaptogens can be incredibly helpful. Today, I'm going to walk you through my top 3 adaptogens for ADHD, how they work in the brain, and why I use them clinically. Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Dan Sullivan. I'm a licensed naturopathic medical doctor, certified functional medicine practitioner, and I also have ADHD myself. On this channel, my aim is to educate and empower using evidence-based medicine and a root cause lens, looking beyond medication alone to better understand what's really driving ADHD symptoms. Adaptogens are natural substances that help the body adapt to stress. They don't force stimulation and they don't sedate the brain. Instead, they help to normalize the stress response and improve resilience, something the ADHD nervous system often struggles with. Before we get into the herbs themselves, it's important to understand why adaptogens matter so much for ADHD. ADHD brains are more sensitive to stress. Research consistently shows that people with ADHD tend to have a more reactive stress response, higher baseline sympathetic nervous system tone, less efficient recovery after stress, and greater vulnerability to cortisol dysregulation. When cortisol stays elevated for too long, it directly interferes with dopamine signaling, prefrontal cortex function, emotional regulation, working memory, and impulse control. So even if dopamine is already lower, which it often is in ADHD, chronic stress makes that problem worse. This is why I see so many patients who say, I can focus sometimes, but I crash. I feel wired but tired. My brain feels overwhelmed even when I'm not doing that much. Or my ADHD gets a lot worse when I'm stressed. Adaptogens don't replace foundational ADHD supports like sleep, nutrition, structure, or when appropriate, medication. But they can dramatically improve how resilient the ADHD brain is under stress, which is often the missing piece. So the first adaptogen I use most often for ADHD is Panax ginseng. Panax ginseng has some of the strongest evidence for cognitive enhancement and neurotransmitter support, particularly in the areas that matter most for ADHD. One of its key mechanisms is that it supports dopamine and norepinephrine signaling in the brain. These two neurotransmitters are absolutely central to ADHD. Dopamine is involved in motivation, reward processing, sustained attention, and executive function. Norepinephrine is involved in alertness, focus, mental energy, and task engagement. Panax ginseng helps modulate the dopaminergic system in a way that supports attention and mental clarity without the jittery overstimulation that many people get from caffeine or stimulants. Another important mechanism is cerebral blood flow. Panax ginseng improves blood flow to the brain, which means better oxygen and nutrient delivery to areas like the prefrontal cortex, part of the brain responsible for planning, impulse control, and focus. This is one reason ginseng has been shown to improve working memory, processing speed, mental stamina, and cognitive performance under fatigue. Clinically, I find Panax ginseng especially helpful for ADHD individuals who feel mentally exhausted, struggle with sustained attention, have brain fog rather than hyperactivity, or burn out quickly with cognitive tasks. It's also neuroprotective, meaning it helps protect brain cells from oxidative stress and inflammation, both of which can impair cognitive performance over time. This makes Panax ginseng a powerful tool for cognitive resilience, not just short-term focus. The second adaptogen I use frequently in ADHD is ashwagandha, but for a very different reason. Ashwagandha doesn't primarily work by boosting dopamine. It works by lowering cortisol and calming nervous system hyperactivation. This is critical for a large subset of people with ADHD. Many ADHD individuals live in a state of chronic sympathetic activation, meaning the nervous system is stuck in go mode. This can show up as anxiety, restlessness, irritability, emotional reactivity, difficulty winding down, and trouble sleeping. When cortisol is elevated for too long, it suppresses prefrontal cortex function and worsens emotional regulation. Ashwagandha helps to regulate the HPA axis, the system that controls your stress hormones. By lowering excessive cortisol output, it helps shift the nervous system toward a more regulated parasympathetic state. What's important to understand is that a calmer nervous system often leads to better focus. When the brain isn't constantly scanning for threats or overstimulation, it has more capacity for sustained attention, emotional regulation, decision making, and cognitive flexibility. Clinically, I see the best results with ashwagandha in ADHD individuals who feel anxious or edgy, are easily overwhelmed, have racing thoughts, feel wired but tired, or have ADHD plus anxiety. Ashwagandha doesn't sedate the brain, it stabilizes it. And for many ADHD patients, that stabilization alone leads to significant improvements in focus and emotional control. And the third adaptogen I want to talk about is Bacopa monnieri. Bacopa works through a completely different neurotransmitter system called the cholinergic system. Bacopa increases levels of acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter that plays a key role in learning, memory, attention, and information processing. Acetylcholine is especially important for sustained attention and memory consolidation, two areas that are often impaired in ADHD. Bacopa has been shown to improve memory retention, enhance learning speed, improve attention and processing, and support communication between brain cells. It also has strong antioxidant properties which help protect neurons from oxidative stress, something that can absolutely impair cognitive function over time. One thing I emphasize with Bacopa is that it's not a stimulant. It works gradually by improving how efficiently brain cells communicate with each other. Clinically, Bacopa tends to be most helpful for ADHD individuals who struggle with memory, have difficulty learning new information, feel mentally scattered, or have slower processing speeds. It's especially useful for students, professionals, and adults with ADHD who need better cognitive endurance rather than short bursts of stimulation. I want to be very clear about something. Adaptogens are not a magic bullet. They work best when they're layered on top of adequate sleep, balanced blood sugar, sufficient protein intake, micronutrient sufficiency, and nervous system regulation. But when used appropriately, adaptogens can dramatically improve how the ADHD brain handles stress, which often unlocks better focus, emotional regulation, and mental clarity. ADHD isn't just a dopamine issue, it's a brain-body issue. And supporting the stress response is often what allows everything else to work better, including medication, therapy, and lifestyle strategies. So to recap, Panax ginseng supports dopamine, norepinephrine, cerebral blood flow, and cognitive stamina. Ashwagandha helps lower cortisol and calm nervous system hyperactivation, improving emotional regulation and focus. And Bacopa monnieri supports acetylcholine, memory, learning, and long-term cognitive performance. These herbs work by stabilizing and nourishing brain function rather than pushing the brain into overstimulation. And for many people with ADHD, that support can make all the difference. If you're interested in trying these, I'll include links below to the specific products that I use in practice. And as always, this is for educational purposes only and not medical advice. Please talk with your healthcare provider before starting any new supplement. And if you'd like to work with me one-on-one to take a personalized root cause approach to ADHD, check out the link in the description to book a discovery call. If you found value in this video, consider subscribing for more evidence-based ADHD content like this.